What up? Welcome to the first edition of NCB Live. I have myself, Derek Hernandez, and I have Greg Smith with me as well. Tell him what's up, Greg.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the first edition of NCB Live.
Yeah, obviously you can tell this is kind of raw. We're still working on the format, but we plan on having these vodcasts on quite a bit on a regular basis here. So what we're going to try to do for this show is actually cover some topics from the week that was in the sporting world and then the week that's coming up. And then we're going to try to go over some of our posts on the site on nocoastbias.com. But the first stuff we're going to talk about basically is since we're big Husker fans here, especially me and Greg. We're going to cover the Husker Bowl game. We're going to cover Week 17 NFL action. We're also going to go over Black Monday, since there was quite a bit of coaching change and turnover there. And then for the next group of topics, we're going to cover the playoff matchups in the NFL, the BCS title game, and then we'll cover some of our sports predictions posts for 2013. So, without further ado, we'll talk about the Husker Bowl game. I'll let you start with this one, Greg. I think you followed me on Facebook and Twitter. You kind of know my thoughts already. But I don't want to be a Debbie Downer to start this show, so you can go first.
Oh, great. I get to be the one that is the upbeat one about the situation.
I guess we could just have bad cop on this.
Yeah,
but
it's tough. It's hard to kind of be realistic. So as we all know, they took another loss. I'll start with the good. The good was I actually thought that they had a real shot. They were leading at halftime by one. They played pretty well in the third quarter. They had the lead. They were looking good, probably up until that point to where, they went to Rex under center and then Amir had that fumble. Everything just kind of wheels came off after that. So that's about as positive as it's going to get.
I mean, think about it, though. We went toe-to-toe with the team that was about 5 seconds away or 5 yards away from making the national title game for 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter happened, and it was the same old story. So, I was with you there until that point, until Abdullah fumbled. I actually looked it up, and he had 8 fumbles the entire year, and he lost 6 of them. That's a lot. But, at that point, though, we were rolling. He had a sweet run towards, I think it might have been that same drive where he went down the left sideline.
Yeah, it had that nice cut. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, my goodness. That was the most I've seen us fired up in a long time. And, I was right there with you. We're going to do this. I believed that it was going to happen. Then the defenses could not stop anybody, which has been the story pretty much all year.
It was weird because, I was saying to somebody else that the defense not stopping them wasn't necessarily a surprise. I think it was more of a surprise as how it happened.
Yeah.
Giving up so many passing yards, especially after the way the first half went. And it's funny that now the more I think about the game afterwards, it's amazing what, a consistent pass rush will do for you and how that'll really help you out. Because I think that a lot, more than anything, is what helped the Huskers in the first half kind of keep Aaron Murray in check. And that second half, he looked all world out there looking like a first-round draft pick.
Oh, yeah. That's Aaron Murray's career, though. He puts up these big numbers. You watch his game. You watch all his games, and you're like, this guy's supposed to be a hotshot QB in the NFL, and then the next half he's just all world. And that was kind of the same thing that happened against us. And then they kept bringing up the stat that we were the number 1 pass defense.
Yeah, hit him with the air quotes.
That's very, very misleading. If you watched any Nebraska games this year, teams didn't really have to throw the ball on us. When you're putting up 500 yards on the ground. Why do you even throw the ball? So that was a little skewed there. It obviously got exposed there in the second half. But you did bring up a point about, we were going toe-to-toe with them on offense especially.
Yeah.
And they were calling timeouts in the second half to regroup. I was like, are you serious?
I couldn't believe that was happening. Yeah, I'm with you. I couldn't believe that they were just exhausted. You could see it. Hands on the knees, hands on the hips. Guys were bent over. They were exhausted, and we just could not put the nail in the coffin, so to speak. It just couldn't. It just didn't happen. We didn't finish.
Yeah, they talked to Abdullah after the game, and he, people were bringing up the, get over the hump. How come you guys can only get 9-10 wins? No titles. I'll get to that a little later, but he almost just flipped out on the media. He's just like, I'm tired of hearing that crap. We were right there with them. He don't care if it was Alabama, Notre Dame, and he was saying, we just got to finish. That's all we have to do. We can play with anybody in the nation. So I like that fight out of him, but at the same time, they just didn't have the horses to roll with them for 4 quarters. I mean,
I agree with you. I like that fight out of him, but isn't that the definition of getting over the hump, though? Like, I mean, finishing these games is what that is. So they have to do that. And until they do that, they're going to continue to face more and more criticism as we move along here and continue with the Bo Pelini era.
And kind of speaking of the Bo Pelini era here, and it'll kind of segue to this a little bit, but after the game, we follow a lot of people on Twitter that like Nebraska, Facebook or whatever, and obviously we're friends with them. The reaction was, I want to say 50-50. One, obviously we were upset. Another big loss. Bo had his chance. That might have been his best win if he would have pulled that off. Up to this date, Oklahoma State in 2010, I think. Missouri, but historically we always beat Missouri. That would have been Bo's biggest win. So people were upset about that. But then the other half of the fans that I've noticed it was a moral victory, and that really got me riled up. For a program, when we talk to other fan bases, specifically, we always dive on Iowa or Colorado, where we always say, we don't have, you guys don't have national titles, conference titles, blah, blah, blah. But when we talk about ourselves and our own expectations, it's okay to lose and be close, and we didn't get blown out, which is ridiculous for how far we've fallen. That got me really upset. I don't know what your thought was on that, but
yeah, I'm exactly with you on that. I don't play the moral victory game. I'm a firm believer that this is Nebraska. We don't go out for moral victories. We don't storm the field. There's just things that should not happen here. We're better than that. And I'm with you. The program has fallen to the point to where we're talking about moral victories in the Capital One Bowl. That's a problem. That's kind of an indication of where we are and kind of the fact that we need to get back to actually winning. Yeah, I know it's not necessarily going to be, 95 all over again. We're not about to then go kind of to some more recent ones on a USC-like run necessarily, or Alabama, what they're on right now. But we have to be better than this. This was, the more I think about it, this was the year that we were supposed to take another step and win the Big Ten. If it's not going to be this year, when do you have faith in it? Yeah, everybody wants to talk about the schedule next year, but Ohio State will still be good. Michigan will still be good. Wisconsin will probably, we'll see what happens with them based on the how the new coach does out there. But this was the year. I mean, it was supposed to happen this year.
Yeah, everything was set up. These were Bo's guys. This was his first recruiting class. All the people he redshirted. I'm going to read you a quote that he said right at the very beginning of the season. This is coming out of his mouth. I know I took a lot of criticism on Twitter for not being a real fan, for expecting championships, and
I caught that.
This conference championship. I'm not talking, like you said, I'm not going to expect us to go 16-3 in 5 years. That's probably never going to happen again. But Bo himself, his exact words at the beginning of the season before Southern Miss: "We're out to win a championship this year. Period. End of story." This is coming from the head coach of Nebraska. He said it himself. Is he not a real fan now, since we didn't, get his expectations weren't met, But I'm right with you. Everything was set up. Ohio State was out of the mix. Everything that happened with Penn State. These are all Bo's guys, fifth year. The process, I don't even know what that means anymore. Bo talks about that.
What is the process at this point?
I don't know. I'm thinking about making T-shirts that say # the process, and I don't even know. People will laugh at it when they see it. I really don't know, but he talks about that all the time. I don't get what the process is right now. So
I don't know.
If the process is taking 2-3 months off of recruiting at the end of the year, hiring guys that with minimal college coaching experience, giving up historic amounts of yards in big games, I don't like the process.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not feeling the process right now. I think the alarming thing to me, and everybody talks about this, I know it makes, like, I'm with you. I've gotten that bad fan accusation and not a real fan thing, because I try to be realistic. I don't want to be the fan that just claims that everything is roses and sunshine, but it's really not. You got some of these losses. I think I have the stat right in front of me, but I think we're averaging giving up 53.5 points a game per loss this season. Like, that's a lot. Those are Big Ten basketball numbers. Like, that's a huge.
Exactly. Those are. We fired a guy for doing that.
Right.
And I'm all about quotes right now, but I think I mean, my credibility's been questioned with some of the stuff I've been writing, and stuff like, why are you so down on the program? And when Bo first got here, I had the Bo Fence shirts. I was all about him. I mean, there was no reason not to like him. He improved, with Callahan's players, on defense, anyways. But here's a exact quote from Tom Osborne. When he fired a certain coach who we won't speak of, it's kind of Nebraska's Voldemort. We won't talk about his name.
He should not be named.
Yes. Here's Osborne's quote here. It isn't just a matter of wins and losses. It's how you do it. If you lose by a field goal and play well, that's a little bit different than getting blown out 3 or 4 times. I try to make sure that they completely understood this. It isn't all about winning and losing. Believe me, I understand that. If you lose a fairly large number of games by a significant margin, and you have fairly good players, which I think we do, then I think there are some systematic issues. I think the players were treated well, but there was something wrong, evidently. That was Osborne right before he canned the coach that Bo took over for. How is that any different from now? Is my question.
It's not, and that's the interesting thing is what we're going to run into. I think next year. I mean, obviously, there's not going to be some huge shock. Bo's coming back next year, but we're going to run into this next year because, like I alluded to earlier, the whole thing about the schedule sets up for us next year, and it does. We don't go on the road until mid-October next year. So it's next year is that year. If we come up with a couple more of these, these blowout losses, I think there's going to be some real, with a new AD, and how that goes when new leadership comes in, as we just saw, and we'll get to later with kind of the Black Monday things. When new, leadership comes in, they want their guy. And it's not necessarily a lack of talent issue, though we could recruit better, and I've always been on that bandwagon that we need to recruit better and we need to find ways to get better talent in here. I think it's a twofold issue. We don't recruit well enough, and we may not develop players at the rate that we would hope to at this point as well. Because we've gotten some guys maybe in the secondary. We'll see if it number one pass defense. But so the secondary is good. It's fine. But that defensive line and those linebackers are not good enough for us to compete at a championship level. And we need, as we all agree as Nebraska fans, that we got to get back to that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement there. I mean, no matter how you think, if you love Bo or you don't love Bo, we all want to see us win. I think that's the bottom line.
Right.
Just how we get there. And I think a lot of us are, I mean, not myself, but I think a lot of the fans aren't really all in on Bo anymore, but they're the fear of the unknown after the coach not to be named debacle happened, and the whole Steve Peterson issue coming in, changing the culture a little bit.
God, I got a little shiver when you said Steve Peterson. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I said his name. He should be up there too. Wow. But, I think we're a little gun shy now. Fans are basically saying, he loses 4 games every year, 4 or 5. I'll take that over, going 5 and 7 or something like that. But that shouldn't be what Nebraska's about. So I think there's some apprehension on making changes. But we'll see. I mean, the schedule does set up the next 2 years. Nothing's ever guaranteed. But we still got to play the big boys in the Big Ten Championship and bowl games. Urban and aren't going away. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens there. I know we kind of digressed from the bowl game itself to kind of the off-season moving forward, but I didn't really want to relive a lot of that action. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's no need to really relive all of that.
Definitely. So I think at this point we'll move on to we'll kind of switch gears a little bit. We'll go into Week 17 action in the NFL. I think you might be doing most of the talking here, Greg. I think I kind of checked out after my fantasy teams did not make it very far in the playoffs, and my Panthers were pretty much eliminated in September. So I did, I think we do got to start with the Skins Cowboys. I did watch that game. Yep. I'm just going to list some names off here that the Redskins fans thought they were their savior. Mark Rippon, Stan Humphries, Jeff George, Trent Green, Tony Banks, Shane Matthews. I can literally just keep going on this, but RG3 comes in his first year and just leads in there. I mean, we got to give a hat tip to Kirk Cousins as well for coming in relief duty.
Yeah, definitely. But people forget that. Don't forget him coming in.
Exactly. I mean, they got criticized for drafting him at the time, but I think it worked out. I'm just saying, if I were a Redskins right now, I'd be a Redskins fan. I'd feel the exact opposite as I did being a Husker fan, basically. I mean, you could be in the golden age right now with RG3. And to outduel Tony Romo, which I don't think is a shock to anybody. And we'll get a little bit into that here in a bit. But, Romo's throwing 3 picks. RG3 is calm, cool, and collected. He's obviously not 100%. Just doing enough to win, riding Alfred Morris. Just watching that game from beginning to end, you figured the Redskins were going to pull that out somehow.
Yeah, you never at any point, even when Romo threw that touchdown to Ogletree late to get them, closer, you never got that feeling that the Cowboys were going to pull that out. And the main reason is Tony Romo on that. But, yeah, go back to RG3. As a Redskins fan, at this point, you just have to have hope and just be so happy for the future and excited because you have the thing in football that will always make you a contender is a great quarterback. There are very few times where you end up having a great quarterback and you don't at least make the playoffs. So when you have that impact guy there, and then even when you go and then look at that next step to people winning Super Bowls, teams so typically they don't win Super Bowls without having about a top 8 quarterback in the league. Trent Dilfer is the exception, but he basically is the Astros. That defense, right, to make that. But yeah, they got to be thrilled about having RG3, and even though like he said, he wasn't 100% in that game, but he made the plays necessary, and they got a great one going forward. And Alfred Morris at running back as well. The future is definitely bright for Washington right now.
Oh yeah, and Shanahan does have experience working with mobile quarterbacks. John Elway, he was successful with him using running backs. You just got to give him the talent. I know he's kind of struggled here the last few years. Some of that his doing. But once he gets to the pieces, he knows what to do with them. So
yeah, it's interesting because I'm one of those people that's not a huge Shanahan guy, especially coming into the season. I was not thrilled about RG3 going to Mike Shanahan because I was a fan of RG3 coming out of college, thought he would be successful, but I did not think that Shanahan would actually mold his offense around RG3's skills. We see that a lot with, especially high-profile coaches not wanting to mold their system to the talent that they have so that they could ultimately be successful. They want to make it about them, and they want to prove that their system is what makes it successful. Case in point with he who should not be named. It was just I give him a lot of credit now, though. I'll eat that crow and give him credit and say that, I was shocked by the fact that he really went out. And, they talked about it during that Sunday night game about how he went out and talked to different guys that had run the spread because they had never run it before. And he took a little bit of this and a little bit of that and really made the offense that they have right now, which is, essentially perfect for RG3 because it was created for him. I give Shanahan a lot of credit.
Oh, yeah, I think if he didn't have that equity built up from winning those Super Bowls, he would have been canned last year.
Oh, yeah.
He wouldn't even have a shot to coach RG3. And I think he got humiliated a little bit, the last couple of years. And I think, once he got that game-changing quarterback, I think he pretty much knew this was his last shot. If he failed with RG3 this year, he was not going to be working again, probably.
Right.
We got to give him props there. I'm surprised we really haven't bashed on the Cowboys yet. This is
I'm a little surprised too.
He's been praising the Redskins this whole time.
Right. RG3 what do you think is a great uniter.
Those guys. Exactly. How do you explain that mess? They're kind of in that purgatory where they're not good enough to win it all, but they're not bad enough to get a high draft pick or anything like that.
Exactly.
Kind of like what we talked about with the draft.
That's that
purgatory.
That's that really bad situation where you're not quite good enough to really contend for the Super Bowl, but you're not bad enough to get a high pick and kind of start all over. It's a tease because the team gives you, just enough to get hope. And that's I couldn't imagine being a Cowboys fan because you look at that team all the time. They have talent on the roster. That has never been the issue. They have talent, but they cannot put it together to actually get over that hump, whether it's coaching, whether or not it's the actual mental makeup of the players that they have. They may be talented, but not able to actually come through in the clutch, a la Tony Romo. It's tough, man. That would be hard to be a Cowboy fan.
Oh, and on top of, being it's kind of like being, you're a Laker fan. It's probably the same thing where when they're down, it's people pile on. That's probably
I'm taking that abuse right now. Yeah.
I don't know. Is this the end of the Romo era? Do you think he's coming back? Are they going to try to make some moves? There's going to be some high-profile quarterbacks out there.
It's interesting. I think that this year, actually, I think that he comes back just for cap reasons. But I believe it's next year, where after next year they can cut him and minimize the cap damage. So I think that, this is the NFL. Everybody's subject to get cut. Honestly, I mean, listen, Peyton Manning didn't get brought back. Yeah, his situation was a little different. But if that guy cannot get brought back, anybody can be cut. And we've seen that time and time again in the NFL, especially when you're not getting it done in the biggest spots. I mean, I would argue, what's the use of Romo getting, close to 4,000 yards, 25, 30 touchdowns if he's just going to fail in the big situation? I mean, you might as well go through a couple of lean years where you rebuild and you get a guy that you can build around and kind of take that next step eventually than to just kind of remain in limbo right now. I mean, that's where they basically are right now.
I mean, they've given him a lot of time. I mean, he's played in a lot of big games.
He's been there longer than people think.
And he's won one playoff game.
Yeah.
One playoff game. I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's, if I were a fan, if I were running that team, I'd probably bite the bullet for a couple years or something like that to get a high draft pick. I don't think there's anybody game changing coming out this year in the draft, but make a move somehow. I don't know if Alex Smith's that guy. I don't think he is, but I mean, there's going to be some proven quarterbacks that have won some games.
I don't know what they do. It's funny because I know Jason Garrett has some quotes where he came out and said that they need to do whatever they can do to kind of help Tony out and all of that. But I just don't know, what do you do? I guess at this point, maybe DeMarco Murray staying healthy for a season would be a help to really kind of give him that run game. Dez Bryant continues to play the way that he played in the second half of the season, and he can stay out of trouble, and they keep that curfew on him. They might be okay with that, but I don't know. The other thing, though, is that I don't want to make excuses for the Cowboys, and you're never going to get that from me. But they had a lot of injuries on defense, too.
Oh, yeah, their entire secondary was...
Yeah, they were playing with dudes off the street out there. So, yeah, I mean, getting that situation fixed. I think one of the questions, though, that I think Jimmy Johnson brought up was whether or not Jason Garrett is the right guy. Is that the real issue? So Jason Garrett be calling the plays for the team. Those are some things that, and it might not happen this year, the same with Tony Romo, but I still believe that somehow we're going to end up with Nick Saban as the coach of the Cowboys, and Jason Garrett's going to be out with Tony Romo maybe next year.
It's funny you bring that up. That's we're going to talk about that in our 2013 sports predictions. But I mean, that's a great question. I mean, Garrett's been there he's been there for I guess not too long, but that was the golden boy. I mean, that was what the Ravens were trying to get his services. I mean, Jerry Jones pretty much anointed him the next hot thing for coaching there as soon as he retired. I think he's always wanted him to be the coach, and I think there might be some emotions kind of clouding his judgment on this call here. So I mean, he's always like.
It's interesting too because when you speak about Jerry Jones anointing him, because you think about some of the other coaches that have kind of come into the league or been promoted since then and have just done so well. I mean, you got both of the Harbaughs. You got guys out there that have come in and that have done really well, and that the Cowboys have now missed out on because they were so quick to anoint Jason Garrett, which may not have been the right move.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I guess we'll kind of see how that plays out. And I mean, I obviously do not like the Cowboys, but so I'm kind of enjoying this a little bit. But it's definitely something worth kind of tracking there because they do affect and they do push the needle a little bit and kind of what you're paying attention to. The only other game I really watched in Week 17 was the Packers-Vikings game. And the big reason for that was to see, AD, go for the record there. Right. That game from start to finish was just awesome. I mean, Ponder Steele was making some great throws. I don't think he's weak in the knees anymore. I think he got married and he's ready to go. But I didn't think the Vikings, a couple weeks ago, I kind of written them off. I was like, okay, they're out. They're going to be, 6 and whatever, get a draft pick. But they went on a run there. The Packers kind of struggled towards the end of the season. But I'm kind of looking forward to that playoff matchup next week to play them back to back. Switching the venue up a little bit. But I mean, that game was exciting. 80 didn't get the record, but from start to finish, that was an exciting game.
Yeah, that was a really good game. I watched that one. It was I had a mixed bag on that one of watching it because on one hand, I wanted to see Adrian Peterson get that record. On the other hand, I had to swallow the pill of cheering for the Packers as the Bears got into the playoffs, which was god awful. But it was interesting because I was with you. I wrote off the Vikings as well, thinking, hey, they go ahead and get a draft pick and maybe they would start looking at another quarterback. But we did see Mr. Samantha Steele come through and kind of play pretty decent. The last few weeks he has actually played pretty well. He's not out there winning the game for them by any stretch of the imagination, but the key thing is he's not losing it for them at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, next week in Lambeau. Them playing for the third time. They're coming right off of playing each other last week. Will that help the Packers game plan against Adrian Peterson, considering they've given up almost over 400 yards to him so far? That's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that game.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, we'll kind of talk about that when we get into the playoff matchups, but I don't know if that helps or hurts playing back-to-back, really. In the NFL, I think that obviously that happens quite a bit more than in the college game, but I don't know. I think there's going to be a brawl. Playing the teams at the same time, back-to-back basically. Yeah. It's playoff time. We'll see if they go after AD's knees. I'm not going to say they're going to be dirty or anything like that, but at this point, I don't think they're going to stop him at all.
I think
like you said, he's got like a fourth of his yards against one team.
Yeah, at this point, it's not about stopping him. It's one of those situations where you could only kind of want to kind of contain the situation and just do kind of actually what they did last week. Going back to the game from last week, what they were able to do was minimize that 75, 80-yard, 65-yard touchdown run that we're used to seeing now weekly from Adrian Peterson. So what they did was he got 199 yards, but it felt like at least that it was hard fought. It was, 2 yards here, 8 yards here, 12 yards, -1. It was more stuff like that instead of those big, back-breaking runs that can really change the momentum and the swing of the game and result in scores. So I think that may be the blueprint for them going forward. But that's one of those things that's easier said than done, man. We've seen this dude for a long time, going back to college. And that he's a beast to stop.
No, and kind of a side note as you bring up the college experience. I went to school at the University of Nebraska from 2002 to 2006, and the year that Peterson got hurt and his collarbone got hurt, he missed most of the season. And the one game he decided to come back, though, was against Nebraska. I have no idea why. It was kind of a bittersweet thing. I got to see greatness in person, watching him kind of go through the black shirts at the time. But why did he have to come back? He could have waited another week or something.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because for those that don't know, we went to school together and we were there at the same time. And I do remember that. I remember thinking, why in the world does he need to come back against Nebraska? Of all the luck in the world, why does he have to come back against us?
Yeah, I thought he was just done, just going to wait it out, go pro. But I don't know. He came back. But kind of an interesting side note there. Anything else from Week 17 you want to talk about? I didn't really watch a lot of the games, but did you have any other games that kind of piqued your interest a little bit?
No, the Bears game, I think that was pretty much it. Those were the ones that kind of meant the most. I think, that the Texans game, briefly, that Texans-Colts game I thought was interesting because I think psychologically the Texans going ahead and losing again and falling out of that number 1 overall seed and keeping home field advantage, I think that was a big deal. And I would, we'll get to this in a second, but that matchup will be interesting with them in Cincinnati, I think, because of that. So that was really the only one that really kind of jumped out to me because the Texans, I think, are, free-falling at this point.
What happened? Did Bill Belichick just steal their mojo when they went to Foxborough and got whooped, or what happened?
I guess so. They just they just lost it after that. It's really interesting. Like, Matt Schaub has been very ordinary. Arian Foster has done well since then. I think he had another 100 yards and a touchdown again last week. J.J. Watt and the boys on defense, it just has not been the same. And they better hope that they can flip that switch fast. That Cincinnati team is pretty good that they got coming to town next week.
Oh yeah, that's one of the ones I'm actually looking forward to there, because what Texans team do you get? For a while there, it was pretty clear that they were like the class of the AFC,
right?
And then I think they put too much stock into that New England game, to be honest with you. And when they got whooped, I think it's just like, are we really that good? Are we ready? Are we ready for prime time? I
think that really knocked their confidence when they got the way that they lost, and they just lost bad too. Like, it wasn't. It's like we were talking about before. It's one thing to take those losses, in a close game where you can maybe take more positives out of it and you feel like, hey, we got some momentum going forward. One or two bounces of the ball go our way, and we can go. But, man, when you just get beat down, it's rough.
Oh, yeah. And kind of speaking about getting beat down, Black Monday. I was just trying to pay attention to that bottom line on ESPN, and I was like, what coaches are left? I mean, who's still coaching now? I'm just going to list these off here, and just feel free to stop me and comment about this. But Romeo Crennel with Kansas City, Norv Turner, San Diego, Lovie Smith, Chicago Bears, which was kind of shocking and not at the same time.
We can get to Lovie. We can talk about Lovie.
Andy Reid, Philly. I think he's going to be okay, though. I think that was just time for him to go, but we'll talk about that. Ken Whisenhunt. Hard to believe they were in the Super Bowl a few years back.
Hey, remember when they were 4-0?
Oh, one of the contributors on our site, Andrew Cumby, had them picked as one of his Final Four playoff teams at the time.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him yet about the season, but
yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to him about that too. Wow.
Yeah, he was way off on that one. But let's see here: Cleveland Browns, Pat Shurmur, and they let the Nick Saban rumors kind of increase a little bit more there. Buffalo Bills, Chan Gailey. To be honest, I don't think anybody cares about the Buffalo Bills, but
that's funny because I was just thinking about that. No one really cares about that.
Yeah. And then Jacksonville fired their GM, Gene Smith. I know there's a couple more front office positions that changed, but I think out of all that, we got to start with Lovie Smith, though. I mean, that was one of the ones that was like, you could have kept him, and he won 10 games. But at the same time, he made the Super Bowl once, but I think he's been kind of underachieving here the last few years.
Yeah, listen, I get the whole they won 10 games, and that sounds real familiar to us. And I get that he went to the Super Bowl with King Rex Grossman. But, I mean, since 2006, they've made the playoffs just once, which actually, when I went and looked that up, was startling to me. Like, I did not realize that until I went to look that up, because I went to look and just
they've never been terrible. They haven't been terrible or anything. That's why it's like, wait.
Right. So, if you take into account, if I just gave you a coach and I said, okay, this coach has a great defense. He now, for the last 2 years, has had, a really good quarterback, though he got hurt last year. They've had one of the better running backs in the league for the last, handful of years. But they've made the playoffs one time since 2006. And, I pull up his record against their biggest rival in the Packers. You would say that guy deserves to go. But all of a sudden, there was this swell of, anger about Lovie Smith getting fired. And I was like, look, man, it's time. His time has kind of run its course with the Bears, and it's time for them to take that next step. It's time for them to say, on offense, we're going to kind of build around Jay Cutler, and yes, that means that it's good that they got him Brandon Marshall, and he had a phenomenal year. And Matt Forte is still great, even though he had a down year, but they need to really address that offensive line.
Oh, yeah. Mike Tice should get canned immediately.
Right, and that was the thing that I thought should have first happened. Mike, they should have just out of the principle of the matter, as my mom would say, principalities involved. They should have went ahead and got rid of Mike Tice first.
I mean, that guy literally runs the same offense I run when I'm playing Madden. I don't even know, he's just so bad. I mean, I don't claim to be smarter than any of the coaches, but if I pick one coach that I could maybe battle in wits, it might be Mike Tice. I mean, that guy is so bad. And, I mean, that falls on the head coach, though. I mean, he hired the guy. He
hired him. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it loosely reminds me of when Tony Dungy had that run with Tampa Bay. I mean, Tampa Bay was a little more successful with his run, but I think they had that great defense. You couldn't get by Green Bay most of the time. They just needed that last thing to get that last change there to get them over the hump. And I'm not comparing that just because they're both black coaches, but I mean they come from the same coaching tree too.
Yeah, and they basically have the same philosophy. But I think that the parallels to that are really interesting. I think that's a good point. I could see it, but I don't know if they're not going to be able to get John Gruden himself to come coach the team, even though he's available. But I think he's just going to get another Monday Night Football raise.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting. I think that they'll go in an offensive direction. And we'll see what ends up happening, though. I could see it going either the Bears take that next step with a new head coach that maybe is a little more offensive-minded and they just need some new blood in there, or I could see, the wheels coming off and them just kind of, taking a couple steps back and being in the top 10 of the draft next year. I'm really interested to see what happens to the Bears, and it all depends on who they get.
I mean, on paper, they have maybe the second best team in that division. Just looking at it on paper with the players they have. I mean, Detroit flopped bad this year, but you would probably take the Bears over Detroit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The Vikings, I still don't know how they made the playoffs. AD can't do this every year, can he? I don't know. But I mean, if you just go on paper with the rosters, the Bears should be right up there, no matter who's coaching them. But like you said, they can just tear this team apart. I mean, who knows what's going to happen there? But
yeah, you can see them blow it up, especially, you look at that defense and some of the aging stars they have on that defense. I put it out there that I wouldn't be shocked if Urlacher doesn't come back next year. His contract is up. Like, I could see them kind of going with a youth movement. But it's interesting because now that it's a possibility they could go with a youth movement on defense, and the defense would take a step back. But if they take that next step offensively, that could actually then be the thing that keeps them in games and keeps them in the playoff hunt. So it could be really interesting in Chicago and what happens going forward.
Oh yeah. Let's see. The coaching changes here. Like I said, Andy Reid, I think will be fine. I think he was just there way too long.
It was time for him to go.
It's kind of what happened. I could compare it to John Fox. I'm probably one of the only 4 or 5 Panther fans in the world, but I compare it to that situation. Fox had some great success there. He was just there way too long, and he ended up going to Denver, and they're tearing it up this year. It probably helps to have Peyton Manning, but
that helps a little bit.
I think he was just there too long. It was he's had an emotional couple years with his personal stuff too. I think it was just time for him to move on. I think the rumors are he's going to Arizona. I think, right? I think that's what.
I think it's Arizona and Kansas City that he's linked to at this point. And the reports are whether or not he's using one of them for leverage or not. But to me, the Kansas City job is a better job. Yeah, you got Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona, but you got Larry Fitzgerald and maybe Patrick Peterson on the defense. And otherwise, that thing's a mess. I think that if you go to Kansas City, even though they're on the clock right now, you get a quarterback in that situation. I think that you could win there. So we'll see what he ends up doing, though.
Definitely. Let's see. Romeo Crennel, I think that was an emotional hire. I think at the time when he beat that undefeated Packers team, and I think that was pretty much why they hired him, and that's not a good foresight in the future, but wasn't shocked by that. Norv Turner, I don't know how that guy kept getting jobs. I mean, that guy is one of the most overrated coaches of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, in the history of ever, he's one of the most overrated coaches. And it's funny that the one thing I forgot to mention about the Cowboys is that keep your eye on the Cowboys trying to bring Norv Turner in to call plays and be the offensive coordinator. I think that could help Tony Romo because he's a great offensive coordinator.
Oh yeah.
You know what he's like? He reminds me of the guy that has been mentioned for head coaching jobs this year, Mike Nolan. So Mike Nolan was a great defensive coordinator. The same with Romeo Crennel, the guy that we just talked about. Great defensive coordinators, and they coordinated some top defenses. But as a head coach, for some reason, it just doesn't translate.
Definitely, and that's kind of you fail up to your highest level of competence, basically. I mean, there's just people you never know how good you are, really. And I think we're kind of starting to see that with. I don't know. We keep going back to Nebraska here with Bo Pelini. I mean, he was great as defensive coordinator. And I don't think he forgot how to play defense. It's just that he doesn't know how to delegate, put pieces together, and that's the same thing with like you said with Norv Turner. I mean, I've kind of said this multiple times. I think that whole coaching tree from the Dallas Cowboys in the early '90s is one of the most overrated things ever. I mean, you had Norv Turner who kept getting jobs. Dave Wanstead, I don't know how many times that guy got a job.
Yeah, man.
I could coach.
He's coaching somewhere right now. Dave Wanstead got so many jobs, man. I saw him with the Bears, and awful, man. Dave Wanstead was terrible.
I'm just saying I could have coached that offense with Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin. I mean, they should give those guys their part of their paycheck every year for every job they get.
They really should.
I have not seen a guy fail up like that, except other than like Lane Kiffin, who's always seemed. I mean, he might be the Chargers' next coach for God's sake.
Hey, for all we know, Lane Kiffin could be on the horn right now, talking to San Diego, ready to fail up. But no, he'll probably get the Bama job after Nick Saban leaves eventually.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, he'd recruit the hell out of that. They'd be on probation again, and they'll suck, and he'll go somewhere else. But and then he'll take over for Bill Belichick or something when he retires.
Right.
I don't know. That's all I had about the coaching changes. Anything you want to add to that?
No, that's pretty much it. Those other guys, I think, were
Yeah.
pretty much, we knew that they were going to get fired. Either it was their time to go or their teams were awful or the teams need to go in a new direction.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was pretty much. I mean, some of those were pretty expected too. I mean, there really wasn't a shocker other than Lovey maybe. Um, so I think that's been hashed out enough. Playoff time then. We're kind of looking forward now. This is kind of one of my favorite parts of the year, just the NFL playoffs. Saturday's games, we got Cincinnati versus Houston, and then we get Minnesota and Green Bay. We've touched a little bit about Minnesota and Green Bay already, but that Cincinnati-Houston game, I mean, I mean, I wouldn't put any money on that one. I just don't know which teams are going to show up. Marvin Lewis always does it well enough to get to the playoffs. He really doesn't do anything. I mean, I think if Carson Palmer didn't get that knee injury that one playoff game, he might have made a run there.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what to think of this game. Actually, I mean, there's teams going in different directions. I think it's going to come down to the wire here. I don't think one team's going to blow each other out, but.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that one really interests me. And as we got at first, I was like, Cincinnati, Houston. I don't really care about that. And then, I started to realize, Houston's been on this huge slide. Cincinnati is kind of a franchise that's trying to be on the upswing right now, coming from, when they were getting arrested every week. They couldn't stop from getting pulled over. To having Andy Dalton and AJ Green and just kind of getting that revival of the program going. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to me because if Houston were to lose this game, I think that it's pretty much over for people really, putting a lot of faith in the Texans. I mean, they have been that sexy pick going into the season now for about 3 years going where people are like, watch out for the Texans, and they can never really live up for it. They're kind of the Falcons of the AFC, right? So I kind of... Right. So I kind of see if they lose this, and we'll see, losing these games down the stretch, how they can bounce back from that. So I'm really interested to see that game and see what kind of game we get in that one. It'll be a big step forward for either team, the one who wins in that one.
Well, what'll be interesting, too, is if, let's just say Houston wins that game, they got to go to New England again. And that'll be really interesting to see how what happens there. And so I'm kind of looking forward. I kind of want to see Houston win to see that matchup, just to see if they kind of man up and take it back to New England, which would kind of remind me of a few years back where New England just straight up rolled the Jets towards the end of the season. Right. And then they ended up matching up again in the playoffs, and then I think that was the last time Sanchez made the AFC Championship.
I was about to say, is that the Sanchez year? Where the people started to believe in Sanchez for winning those playoff games?
Oh, yeah. And that was during the whole foot fetish deal, the Wes Welker put your best foot forward game. Right. But I think that would be kind of similar to that, where it's, Houston got rolled, we get a chance of redemption here, or they could just get rolled. But because we'll see what happens there. Sunday matchups, we get Indy and Baltimore. Which became a little more interesting with Ray Lewis's announcement that he was going to retire after the season, and then we get Seattle and Washington. I guess we could just start with Indy and Baltimore here.
Yeah, this day right here. Now, if I had to rank either day, which one I could not miss? This is the day that I can't miss. I got to see both of these. I'll be locked into these. This is going to be two great games. Well, starting with that Indy Baltimore game. Yeah, we got a little extra juice with Ray Lewis saying this is going to be his last ride. And then you got all the emotional stuff with the Colts and their coach, battling back from the cancer, and then Andrew Luck, how is he going to do in his first playoff? I think the thing to watch out for in this one though is everybody's talking about Andrew Luck. We need to see something from Joe Flacco in this game. I think that which Flacco shows up is going to be a huge key as to what happens in this game. If we get 150 yards and 2 interceptions from Joe Flacco, Baltimore lost. It's as simple as that.
Well, I mean, he's getting into the Romo territory here. He might be the Romo of the AFC. I mean, the way things are going. But Jim Caldwell, he's coaching the offense for Baltimore, isn't he?
Oh, you know what? I didn't even know. You know what? I forgot all about that. They did do that. That's interesting too. Yeah, there's all sorts of storylines in this game.
Oh yeah, this Sunday. I mean, if I miss Saturday, I'd be like bummed about it, but I could not miss Sunday. I mean,
Yeah.
when you look at that Seattle-Washington matchup, I mean, that's going to be a 9-7 knockout, drag-out game. I could see that, but I could also see these two hotshot quarterbacks just go off.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and I think that it's awesome though to see the three rookie quarterbacks that everybody's been talking about this year, to see them in the playoffs. So instead of just saying, oh, well, you know what, that Andrew Luck, man, he put up all these numbers this year. RG3 did a great job as a dual threat guy, but their teams still suck. It's nice to see that they had great years and all of their teams made the playoffs. That's awesome to see, and I can't wait to see that Seattle-Washington game. I cannot wait to see. I mean, not only do you have the two quarterbacks matching up, you got those two great running backs. You got Washington's defense has come along, and they've, probably overperformed. But they got, London Fletcher, who's probably one of the most underrated players of our generation, kind of coming through. He's got to be pushing 40 now, and he's still leading teams in tackles. Like, it's just incredible what he's doing. And then you got Seattle with that great defense in there, really good secondary, and you always got the Pete Carroll factor. Yeah, this one will be this.
I'm going to call it now. Richard Sherman is going to go for RG3's knee. He's gonna go for the low blow.
I can see.
I'm calling it right now. That's my lock for the week.
Yeah, and then he's probably going to tweet about it after that.
But no, this is going to be. I'm looking forward to it, obviously, and we'll talk more about the matchups next week because I think just looking ahead, if let's just say the Skins win, they're at home, and Green Bay wins over Minnesota. If the top seeds prevail, you get Green Bay and San Francisco, a rematch of that Week 1 game, and just all the history that around that playoff matchup, and then you get Atlanta and Washington. I mean, whoever wins that Seattle and Washington game
is going to be favored.
They could make a run.
Either way, the winner of that game, I think, is going to be the team that people look at as kind of that Green Bay Packers, New York Giants kind of team that's going to make the run. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I can really see that.
And then on the AFC side, Houston, we'll see if they get their stuff together. They played New England, and we kind of talked about that. But then you'd get Indy or Baltimore. If you got Indianapolis versus Denver, you get Peyton Manning versus a little team, which would be, the storylines there would be great.
Yeah.
I think Denver would just dispatch of Baltimore if they played. But, if we got Indy, Denver, that would be insane, I think.
Yeah, I think the networks are hoping for that one.
Oh, yeah. You get Denver, Indy. Let's just say Denver pulls that out, and then Denver, New England again.
Right.
Against New England. We'll see what happens there. There's a lot of potential for storylines.
Right. There's going to be storylines either way, but even if you got Denver versus Baltimore, you can't. Ray Lewis, Peyton Manning is not going to – that's going to put butts in seats and get people watching too. But, yeah, that Denver, Indy would be great. But, yeah, we'll see what happens this week. I'll be watching. It'll definitely be really interesting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And let's kind of switch gears a little bit. We'll go to the anti-bracket kind of part of the show here with the BCS title game now. And we're going to get a playoff here in the next year or so. I still think it's going to get moved up. They're going to vote for it probably to move up a little bit. But the BCS title game, obviously we talked a lot about this on the website. So you can check out our kind of our articles there. But, just to kind of touch on it briefly, in my opinion, I think the 40-plus day layoff is going to affect Notre Dame a lot more, especially with the way they were winning. A lot of mojo, close games. They just had that chemistry going. I don't think it's going to go completely away, but I think that's going to affect them there. I don't know who I'm going to root for in this game. For my website and for my colleagues on the site, I should be going for Notre Dame, but Bama too. I don't want the SEC to win. I really don't want Bama to take that to take Nebraska out of the title talk. The only time we ever mention we're national titles now is when teams are going to break our records from the 90s.
Right.
They would get the third title in 4 years, which hasn't happened since the mid-90s. I do got to mention, though, when we did it, we went undefeated those 3 seasons. Bama's never done that. So we got that to hold on to. This is one of those games where I almost had Bama picked as like my most confident pick that they were going to beat Notre Dame.
Really?
But after seeing Nebraska hang with Georgia for 3 quarters, and that team was a play away from beating Bama, and I think Nebraska's way overrated this year.
Yeah.
I think Notre Dame's got a shot now. Just looking at that way. I don't know. What do you think?
It's a really interesting. There's a lot of reasons to be interested in this game. I've been saying for now weeks because there's so much of a layoff that this one is a Sophie's choice. As far as pick who you want to win. Be honest. Yeah, we got a lot of people that we know now from knowing people, having colleagues on the site that write about Notre Dame and like Notre Dame. So we've now gotten to know more Notre Dame people. And sorry to them, but it sucks to have to root for Notre Dame. On the other hand, it sucks to have to root for Alabama because of the whole SEC thing and having to hear about that all the time. And then, you have two coaches that aren't the most well-liked guys in the world. But then that's an understatement. But staying with those coaches, man, these are two awesome coaches. What I'm really looking forward to is kind of that inside stuff, that game planning that goes on when you have this much of a layoff and two great football minds. You got a great defensive mind in Nick Saban. You got a great offensive mind in Brian Kelly. So really getting to see that chess match is really interesting to me. But I've been saying, for a little bit too, that the more I think about it, the more I think that Notre Dame can actually win this game. And that was before, seeing what I saw yesterday with Nebraska hanging with Georgia and Michigan and South Carolina. And I'm assuming Louisville and Florida will be close tonight.
Wow.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Notre Dame goes ahead and pulls this out.
And I'm not going to lie, the championship game I wanted to see if Nebraska wasn't in it was Oregon-Alabama. I wanted to see.
Yeah, I was 100% with you on that.
The greatest defensive mind right now going in college football against the best offensive mind. I mean, that would have been, styles make fights. That would have been a great fight right there. I would have loved to see that. But Brian Kelly's no slouch either. I mean, he could flat out coach. I mean, he won everywhere he's been. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I think it might be the highest viewed game ever in college football.
Yeah, it's going to be. The ratings for that are going to be off the charts. Everybody will be watching that game because you can't ask. What more could you ask for in a national championship game than the tradition from those two programs? The national championship count is a little misleading, and we both feel the same way about counting those national championships that they do. But the tradition, it can't really be denied. And it's going to be a great game.
And speaking about that national championship count, I think you've heard me talk about this a lot of times before. I mean, obviously, some of it is kind of the obvious where teams were crowning themselves national championships before the bowl game even happened. Right. Michigan is notorious for this. They have like a bunch of them that they just crown themselves at the beginning before the poll area. I mean, Bama does it. Notre Dame did it. And again, I think I even bring up too, like, I don't really count national championships or trophies or anything before segregation, really. I mean, before integration. I mean, think about I don't know. I think the same thing with like Babe Ruth in baseball too. I didn't think he was that great. I'll probably get killed for that by the peers.
Yeah, the Yankee fans are gonna come after you on that one. But up until the Babe Ruth thing, I was with you on that. Y'all send the hate mail to Derek. Yeah, find his email on the site.
I know exactly.
But I'm with you though on the college football thing because, hey, until we really got integration, man, we can't count this stuff. Michigan, and it was a great point about Michigan because Michigan has more made-up national championships than I know what to do with. So, yeah, I agree with you that they should go back and look at that. But I actually think, though, at the same thing is kind of like the stats in baseball, which baseball has kind of gone through their own stuff. Your integration, your juicing period, all of that stuff. So if anybody needs to kind of look at their stats and records and all of that, it's baseball. But, yeah, college football, definitely. Alabama and Notre Dame, you can't claim that, 9 titles and 8 titles? You can't claim that.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. I mean, if I had my choice, it'd be like 1970 on. I think a lot of that, I mean, the schools were kind of integrating at that time.
Yeah.
It was closest.
That'd be a good place to start.
I don't know. I mean, that will obviously help Nebraska a little bit because we want our title at
right.
that point. But I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts on that since you brought it up. But which kind of leads me to our last segment of the show. We're going to talk about our 2013 sports predictions. A lot of the members on the staff put together some of them are realistic. A lot of them are tongue-in-cheek predictions for the upcoming year. I know I try to center my inner Bill Simmons on some of mine, that little segment they got on NBA Shoot-Around now. But I'm just going to kind of spit some of these out. Some of these seem pretty dang realistic to me, and some of these are just so outrageous they're just funny.
Right.
But I'll just start naming these. You can feel free to stop me, Greg, and kind of talk about some of this stuff. But I thought this one was funny because it's probably going to happen. Patrick Kane will get a DUI within 3 feet of his parking spot, hurting nothing and no one but himself and what little credibility he has. So
Yeah, Kaner doesn't really have any credibility at this point. We know what he's about, man. He's about getting them drinks. And, but he needs to stop. Make sure you don't get behind that wheel. But, yeah, he's definitely about that party life.
what I thought was funny is that we had, I think, 3 of us put together these predictions, and 2 of us had the Patrick Kane getting a DUI. So I think if you're going to put money on that, it's going to happen. So let's see. Somebody put David Beckham will tell the world how much he really hated playing in the MLS and tell all in his novel.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either, because it seemed to me that he came over, got those paychecks, got Posh Spice a little bit more notoriety, and then it was time for him to bounce out. Yeah.
We got 2 different ones here. I know we had differing thoughts about the Bama Notre Dame game. One was, and this is kind of what we alluded to earlier about Nick Saban, and this is the one I put. Bama rolls the Irish in the title game. Nick Saban gets an obscene offer from the Texas Longhorns after Mac Brown is forced to resign, which I'm trying to start a Maction hashtag for Mac Brown, whatever some coach grossly underperforms with the talent he has. But that's besides the point. And then it says Saban does, in fact, take a coaching job in the Longhorn State, but it's with the Dallas Cowboys.
Right. Yeah, I saw that, and you know what? I think that we might just be a year early on that, but I could see him going to the Cowboys. But since you hit on this, man, how does Mac Brown still have a job? Like, yeah, I know that he won that national championship because of Vince Young, but as we start to dig into the Longhorn program and how they've missed, specifically at quarterback, going forward, I was telling a guy, while I was watching football this weekend, that, after Vince Young, they had Colt McCoy, and Colt McCoy got them to a national championship. I'll give you Colt McCoy, whatever anybody thinks about him, fine, whatever. But after that, they should have had RG3 and then Johnny Manziel.
Andrew Luck from Texas.
After that, Andrew Luck also was from Texas, and I'm sure we could find a handful of other ones too. Like, how does that even happen? And it's not like Andrew Luck went to USC or RG3 went to Oklahoma, or Johnny Manziel, when he went to A&M, he was supposed to go to Oregon, when that would have been just frightening for defense. Yeah. But yeah, how does that happen? And not only do you not get them, you wanted them to come play safety. So yeah, Mac is going to be in some real trouble. Yeah, Mac will be in some real trouble, man.
QB misses. We call it Maction now.
Right.
And the thing is, Texas has the resources. They can probably get anybody they want. That's the thing. Like, you're holding on to this guy. If you really roll out and give offers Nick Saban $10 million a year, which they probably could.
They could.
I mean, they have options. It's not like they're stuck with a guy that they have to stick with. I mean, they got the most money probably in college athletics. Right. It does baffle me. Let's see here. Here's another prediction. The Clippers make a terrible trade that costs them later in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to refrain from talking about the Clippers, seeing as how what's going on with the Lakers. But we'll see what happens to them. Will the Clipper curse rear its ugly head for them? We'll see. I'd rather see an injury hurting them more than a stupid trade. Because if they make a trade, they really are cursed.
Well, I think they might have to. I don't even think it's a trade that's going to cost them. I think it's, when Chauncey comes back and Grant Hill comes back. I mean, they have a good thing going right now. Like, where are the minutes going to come from? And
there's only one ball. As selfless as CP3 is, and he will distribute the ball, he's kind of CP3 in an interesting way. Is kind of to me is like the opposite of Kobe. Like, Kobe is like great and wants to show you and show everybody how great he is on a nightly basis by scoring. CP3 is like, listen, I know I'm better than you, and I can take over the game at any time, but I'll just do it when we have to.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the big difference between where these teams are performing. Nobody wants to talk about it, but I think that has a lot more to do with how the Lakers are performing than people want to say.
Well, if it wasn't for basketball reasons, you'd have Chris Paul too. But we won't talk about that.
We can't talk about that. We can not the basketball reasons, man. I had me forever hating Stern. Basketball reasons.
That's what we should call our NBA blog, basketball reasons. There you go. Kind of on a humorous note here, which I could see this totally happening too. As a Nuggets fan, we'll get to this and probably on a different day. JaVale McGee completes a ridiculous 720-degree dunk in his own basket. Seriously,
I'd never be surprised by anything that JaVale McGee does. You know how you watch that 30 for 30 with Bo Jackson, how people aren't surprised about these legends of Bo Jackson? I would never be surprised about anything we hear about JaVale McGee going forward.
He might be. I mean, people bring up, obviously Blake Griffin and, like most exciting players in the NBA must see. McGee's like that too. I mean, he's athletic as hell and he has some pretty sweet plays, but for some of the most ridiculous reasons, though, you have to watch his games. Like,
yeah, you gotta. If he's on TV, man, you gotta check him out. You gotta watch JaVale McGee for nothing other. You're gonna get a couple moments of just pure comedy.
Oh yeah. Speaking of the NBA here, and I think this one's realistic. The more I think about it, people are gonna laugh at me for saying this. Lee Corso is not going to be on game day forever. I mean, he had a stroke. I don't know who they're going to replace him with because, I mean, he's a pretty big part of the show. People wait till the very end just to watch him put his headgear on, say something stupid or whatever he does.
Yeah.
That and Sam Steele. She's still Sam Steele to me. But I think somebody brought this up to me in another message board, though. Charles Barkley does, in fact, quit commentating the NBA, but replaces Lee Corso on College Game Day.
That would be really interesting because we had an article a while back on the site about how Barkley is getting bored at TNT, even though they got the best sports show on TV to me going right now when inside the NBA. But yeah, I could see that happening for no other reason than he would be bored and he'd want to do something different.
Yeah.
And I know he talks about Auburn football. I don't know how much else he knows about college football, but people don't really watch Lee Corso because he's the most knowledgeable guy in the world.
He's not breaking down, the Nick Saban matchup zone or anything. He's just there.
Right.
Funny. I mean, and Lou Holtz, all he does is talk about Notre Dame, and he's really not giving us mind-blowing things either. So, man,
that was one of the worst things that happened for college football fans is Notre Dame getting good again, because now we got to hear Lou Holtz all the time. I was at a restaurant, was it last week, and I looked up, and they had ESPN on, and they had this coaching roundtable, and they got Lou Holtz up there slobbering all over the place, man.
How did that guy win a title?
Awful.
How did he win a national title? I don't understand. He would not motivate me. I don't know. Anyways, that's a
whole. Yeah, we'll be here for a long time if we're
getting a lot of comments on this from our Notre Dame following.
Right.
Lisa's gonna kill us, but let's see here. Definitely switching gears here, and I don't think this is out of the question. A Paulina Gretzky sex tape is released.
You know what? I got the most feedback on that one thing, and then from all of the prediction stuff that we had going. It was funny because I had a buddy text me right after he read that. And he was like, "I just feel like that's going to happen. Like that's just something that we can just just count down the days until that happens." Like my wife literally asked me about that. She was like, "Well, who is that?" And she was like, "Oh, that's the chick that's always posting Instagram photos." I was like, "Yeah." That's
or Wayne Gretzky's daughter. I don't know. It's funny they don't know her as that. But, I mean, she made a name for herself. I mean, that'd be tough to do.
Yeah, you want to talk about trying to get out of your famous dad's shadow. I mean, I guess she did.
I mean, the name possibilities could be pretty crazy for that. I mean, there are going to be a lot of hockey puns probably, but...
Oh, yeah. There's all kind of 8-hole references that could pop off with that one.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I don't know what adventure there right now. That might be an after hours late night edition of the show.
Right, NCB Live After Dark.
After dark. Let's see. We'll get a little morbid here. One of our new writers, Tony, wrote this. I've never played a death pool before, but if I ever wanted to join one, it'd be this year. And he's saying that because there's a long list of big-name celebrities that are pretty close to dying here. And he listed Betty White. I don't know if people are going to be saddened by that one. Clint Eastwood and Queen Elizabeth. I could maybe just the patriotism in me. I don't care if Queen Elizabeth dies, to be honest with you. But
see,
the other two I could see.
Again, Britain, send your hate mails to Derek Hernandez.
Exactly. I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail today. We might just have a show based off of that.
Right. We could just do something called the mailbag where we read.
We'll see if I'm even back on this show. I'll just have somebody.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, he brings some good points. You forgot Larry King. I mean, he's always waiting.
Yeah,
Um,
Larry's always right there on the precipice, the Grim Reaper sneaking up on him. But that Betty White thing, man, even when that happens, it'll happen eventually. But when it does happen, that one's gonna be a sad one. The
I mean,
internet
there's
is
always
gonna
got to be a
lose its
pro
mind,
wrestler.
huh?
There's got to be a pro wrestler that's going to die. There's always one every year.
Yeah, there's always one or a former athlete, like another former athlete. Yeah, there was something like that.
I can see like Conseco overdosing on it or something.
Yeah, something like that always goes down.
I don't know. I bet. I mean, Ric Flair and Hogan got to die eventually. I mean, those guys are still in the ring right now, and
Nature Boy, man, they gonna have to take him out in the ring.
I don't even want to comment on that. I think he's trying to make a return to the WWE right now, but he did make an appearance a couple weeks back. I was like, "You're gonna have a heart attack, dude. Get out of there."
Yeah, he needs to hang it up. Nature's one of the greatest, but he gotta go, man.
He wasn't lying when he said he'll never retire. Let's see. Derrick Rose makes an Adrian Peterson-like comeback, leading the Bulls to the Eastern Conference Finals.
This is the one that I hope I don't see, not because I don't want him to make Adrian Peterson like return. I don't want him to make a return at all. Hey man, no. The Bulls lose him again. If he gets hurt, like re-aggravates that injury, then it's going to be bad news for them. They're hanging in there right now.
Yeah.
But the Bulls have to play a long-term game with Derrick Rose versus the short-term. I know they want him back, and everybody wants him back, but he needs to wait. I've been saying that, and I think every single Derrick Rose post that I've done on the site, I think I've mentioned that they should let him sit out for this season. People are probably tired of reading me say it. But, yeah, let him sit out the season, please. And I think he's on the road trip with them this week, so he's getting closer.
I mean, I don't know what to think. I mean, because I think it depends on what's happening in the second half of the season. If the Knicks start crumbling or whatever, and then the Heat aren't what they were last year, and they're not as motivated, they might be tempted. They're like, well, Boston's kind of not doing so hot. The Hawks, really, I'm not ever going to take them seriously until they get a new roster. I could see them being tempted, but again, I don't want to see another Penny Hardaway where we're just robbed of somebody's career. This would be way bigger than that. But
that Penny Hardaway situation is my greatest fear with Derrick Rose, because we are really on the verge where we've already seen greatness from him, winning that MVP. But you just can't imagine how big of a deal it would be if Derrick Rose was able to take the Bulls, his hometown team, to a championship and kind of get, after all, Jordan and after all of those lean years that the Bulls went through, man, for him to do that for his city and how, like, a part of Chicago he is, to not get to see that because of injuries would be kind of, that would hurt.
Oh, yeah, and I never thought Eddie Curry's run with the Bulls would be considered the lean years. You usually don't get those two.
Nice.
I don't know. I kind of want to see it because he's a great player, but again, I don't know if is it worth it this year. I mean, just give him another, some more time off there, but we'll see what happens there. That'll be interesting. Let's see. I don't even know if this guy's actually going pro, but I wrote an NFL scout will fall in love with Logan Thomas, trades up to draft him, and I say he's going to be playing tight end by 2014. And I'm not even know if he declared yet, but
no, I don't think he declared yet. He shouldn't. I'm not 100% sure, but I know he shouldn't, because I don't see that going well at all. Like, people, it's really strange to me, and I get that people fall in love with kind of the measurements, but we're talking about him playing NFL quarterback strictly based on the fact that he's big. Like, I mean, if he was 6'1", or no, let's say not even 6'1", let's say he was 6'3", or he was 6'2", like just a normal sized quarterback, we wouldn't be talking about Logan Thomas. Like, we got to stop this. The same way with Sean Glennon. We need to stop with that too.
I hate this time of year. It annoys the hell out of me. McShay and Kuiper. It's like, you actually watch the game though. I mean, we can all measure a guy. We don't just look at the depth chart. I mean, what kind of scouting is involved in that? Like,
and that kind of brings us full circle back to the Aaron Murray thing. Is that's what scares me about Aaron Murray, is that watching those games, and we both watch a lot of college football. We watch a lot of games, so we see actual games and not the box score. When you see that Aaron Murray threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he maybe threw an interception or two, you don't necessarily think about the fact that, he didn't have that great of a completion percentage, or he has those games where he reminds me a whole lot of Matthew Stafford, another Georgia quarterback, where his footwork is just awful. Like, he really reminds me of that, and that scares me a lot if I were to take him at the next level.
Oh yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Obviously, I'm not going to say I'm an NFL scout, but sometimes, do you actually just watch the games? I can see they're projecting. They're going to be with some professional coaches, and they're going to maybe clean some things up. But what I'd like to see, they always have these shows where they have their big boards and their predictions, their mock drafts, and this team won the draft this year because they drafted this well. They never have the show reviewing those predictions. They need to have those shows to see how.
You know what? That's so true, though, because I might have to go and look this up. I wish I had thought about it beforehand. But didn't Seattle get not good draft grades this year? Weren't they kind of talked about? And it turned out that Russell Wilson and the guy, now his name's escapes me, the defensive end linebacker that they have.
Yeah, I can't remember who he was, but I think wasn't he out of
West Virginia, maybe?
It was Herb Smith.
Bruce Irvin. There we go. I knew it'd come to me. Yeah, that guy, people were saying that they took him too high. So, yeah, they should do that. And, hey, since ESPN embraces debate, why don't they just go ahead and pull that up they can have a debate show about that.
They won't call out their own. Maybe we can do that after this year's drafts. We'll do during draft time, we'll just do a recap of last year's grades. I'm just so you know, don't take Mel Kiper's word as gospel. But.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll keep them honest. We are here for you guys to keep them honest.
Let's see. We're getting close to the end here, and this one probably going to happen if it hasn't already. Bomani Jones blocks 3,285 followers on Twitter and rocks a T-shirt that says "Your" with an asterisk on it on Around the Horn.
That's his next venture. He already hit with the beat 'em down T-shirts. I got a couple buddies that have those shirts. But yeah, he already hit with that, man. But he is a blocking machine on Twitter.
It's funny too. I just watch it to see who he blocks and what they say.
Oh, it's absolutely hilarious. It's the funniest thing. And it's funny because if we we're doing this now. We're in the sports media thing in a way. We're trying to get bigger in this, man. If I could see that's how I would act. And let us get big, man. I'm creating that GIF with me throwing money up saying you want something. I'm doing the same thing because that's how I would act. I'd be blocking these fools too. If you ever look at those mentions, man.
I might be too vain. I might just keep them on board. Do something. I'll make fun of them with my, if I get a big following enough. But I think that Donde usually just retweets people or something when they say something really dumb. But
yeah.
Let's see. We got 4 more left here. Oh, Kenny Smith says the NBA dunk contest is back. I think that's a given. He says that every year.
Yeah, it's always back. It never left, according to him.
Let's see. Tiger Woods wins a major. I kind of hope that happens. That might be more of a hope.
I actually just kind of hope that would happen because I like to see Tiger do well. And as much as people say that they now hate Tiger Woods, hey, when he was in those tournaments last year, everybody was watching. Those ratings were way higher than they were for Luke Scott or whoever it is out there winning.
Exactly. I hope that happens. Let's see. Roger Goodell finds EA Sports for the hit stick. That might be taking his power a little bit too far. This one I think you might have a comment for. RG3 names his fantasy football team the Cornballers.
It's so crazy that after all of this, man, the biggest criticism that RG3 got all year for the whole black quarterback thing came from another black guy. Just come on, man. Rob Parker, and then of all people to do this, it's Rob Parker. If we're going to start calling people cornballs, wouldn't Rob Parker be on the cornball board of trustees? He'd be right there in the mix, right? Come on.
Yeah, he would. He would be. And it's just, I don't know. Have you tried watching First Take recently?
I do not know. I never watch it.
I recommend it. But.
The ironic thing is I watch it the times where they are, on vacation. So, Skip Bayless was on vacation the other day, and I watched it. That's when I watch.
Just think of the people they have on that thing. Obviously, everybody knows about Skip Bayless, and he's just straight up terrible. Lomas Brown, what's he doing recently, man? I mean, they just have no like they can have an opinion, but you can't call them out, and they just attack you.
Right.
I don't know how that's professional at all.
Like it's crazy because the premise of that, and it started off as just kind of a segment within First Take, and then first and 10, and then like the show, like it just kind of took over. And then they just made it like that whole debate thing, and they just made that was the only thing. But the premise of it is actually a good idea. Like, who doesn't want to see a couple people with maybe opposite viewpoints kind of sit around and debate sports? It's what we kind of do. But the fact that they never really had people, they don't have people with that credibility, at least that most people think have that credibility. Whatever, man. That show to me, that show is dead to me, man. As long as Skip Bayless is running that show, and it's funny that we talked about Bomani Jones, because funny how Bomani came on and people all over the place were saying that he kind of owns Skip and he's never been back. And he makes mention of that every once in a while, but he's not going to mess up his money and really go, fully into it. But yeah, we know what time it is over there with that show.
I mean, if they would put a couple different people on there, maybe like Van Pelt or Rosello or somebody like that actually is civil and they actually bring up legit facts and they're not trolling people, it might be different. Like you said, it's a great format. They just jumped the shark on that whole thing there. Yeah,
I think Tebow pushed them over the shark there.
I thought we would make an entire show without talking about that guy.
Yeah, thanks, you know what? That's my fault. I'm sorry. I brought him up. We can scratch that. We'll just pretend.
I'll edit that out when we edit the show.
Yeah, take that out.
Last point here that I have, and then we'll kind of leave it open. Last prediction, I guess. Michaela Maroney turns 18. It's not really a prediction. That's going to happen December 9th, 2013. Mark it down, guys. A good portion of the male population will just feel a little bit less creepy. I know we get a lot of hits on the site because of Miss Maroney, but people forget how old she isn't, which is kind of funny
right.
too. But I think you're going to see a lot of jokes about that on Facebook. There's probably going to be something on, the dead spin, something funny that is going to happen because of that whole deal. But
yeah, she'll be on SNL when she turns 18 doing a skit about it.
Oh yeah. That was actually all the predictions that I had written down. I don't know if there's anything that you caught on the post there.
No, that was those were good. I think those were kind of the ones that when I went back and looked at it, those were kind of the ones that really jumped out. That Michaela Maroney one is a trip though, because that one is you gotta remember. People go look up her birth date.
December 9th, I told you. We got like a year, basically. Yeah, you guys can check out the rest of those posts on nocoastbias.com. We got all of them listed there. That was it for the show. Is there anything else you want to add, Greg?
Nah, man, I'm looking forward to these playoff games. The Orange Bowl, or not the Orange Bowl, I'm sorry, the Sugar Bowl tonight. We'll see about that. I'm more excited about this Nebraska ball Big Ten opener.
Oh, my God.
They'll get killed, but, hey, that's all right.
This is where we start. Yeah, it's going to get ugly here from here on out with conference play.
It's going to be a little rough. But, yeah, I'm ready for the Fiesta Bowl in a couple of days. Then, these playoff games coming up, man. I'm excited for the weekend in football.
Yeah, me too as well. I mean, I got I'm looking forward to the NFL playoffs, of course. I want to see Oregon, Kansas State. I mean, that was going to be the national championship just a few weeks ago.
Right.
Which is crazy. I think Oregon's going to roll, but I'm interested in watching that. I'm sure we'll have a couple shows before then, but the Rumble's coming up. WWE, Royal Rumble, The Rock returns. I want to see what happens there. I was going to make it out there, but since I blew so much money on the Big Ten championship, now that I think about it, that was really stupid. I should have just saved my money.
Man, you're not lying about that, but I'm still mad we spent all that money out there. Hey, but shout out to Indianapolis though for putting on a good thing, man. They had a nice events, all the events, the sports bars, everything was cool out there, man. It's up until we got to the game, but everything else was real cool.
Same thing with I don't know about you, but the Badger fans, they took it to us. They were cool with me though. They were really nice about it. I
didn't have any problems with any Badger fans, anything like that, which is always nice to see because, I'm all about talking that smack. But once, if you mix alcohol and college football fans, you can end up getting into some weird stuff. And, it may come up another time, but I got some stories about, Missouri.
Speaking
Missouri
of
and
alcohol,
Colorado for you, I'm sure, but yeah, we Badger fans were good.
there are no Colorado fans anymore, by the way. So they're
They
just
have a program still.
I don't even know, Division II football, man, or whatever Hawkins said. Well, by the way, I did take a shot with Tommy Frazier out in Indianapolis. That was pretty cool. One of my boyhood heroes. So that was pretty badass. So big shout out to Tommy. That's pretty much all I have. Before I leave, sign off here, just want to show you the shirt that I'm rocking today. I'm going to try to make this a recurring theme for the show. Everybody loves the Dream Team. I love the Dream Team. Greg loves the Dream Team. I'm repping the greatest 12th man of all time today. I have the Dream Team Christian Laettner shirt. This is gold medal. I think this is a limited edition. And,
limited edition is one way to put it.
or I'm the only one that bought this. And I hate Duke. I just thought it was hilarious and ironic. But
you and Christian Laettner's mom were the only ones that bought that.
And Christian Laettner, probably.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll try to make that a recurring theme, too. Definitely comment on the show. Let us know what you guys think. We're going to post this up on our YouTube page and on the site. If you have any feedback on the format, please let us know. We'll try to get the other members on the team on the site as well. That's all I have. Greg, do you have anything else to add?
Nah, man, that's pretty much it. Yeah, man, it's our first show. I know it's going to be a little rough around the edges, man. We're looking forward to bringing you guys more shows. It's going to be a good time.
Cool. All right, guys, that's it. Till next time.
Later.